Alright, so we're going back to Hilchos Niddah Siman Kuf Peites after a little bit of a break. So since we're away for a few weeks, I think it's a good idea to review, to refresh ourselves with some of the halachas of the middle part of this Siman, this long Siman Kuf Peites that deals with the various kinds of vesatot, different kinds of periods, and what brings the onset, or what causes the onset of a period other than just a time frame that has elapsed. And even though they may not, these additional types of vesatot that can occur may not be so frequent, so common, nonetheless it's important to learn how they work, how they operate, so that we have some sort of a foundation on the dynamics of veset and the various opinions as to how to deal with them. So, just to review, we're dealing with vesatot, or periods that are caused or brought about by sibah chitzonit, by an external factor. And in Sif Yud Zayin through Yud Ches, we saw some examples of jumping. Not a jumping being, but a woman that jumped. In other words, she did something extraneous. Is that the right word? A lot of effort involved. And Kfitza is just one example. And she saw blood. So the first thing we need to make clear is that regardless of how that blood came about, even if it was through oinus, it renders her tmeya. And therefore she conducts herself in all the sidrei tahara, in all the procedures that are required for her to become clean. The only question that remained was, okay, but now can we use this as a precedent? Can this eventually, at some point, establish a veset if it were to recur? Could the veset be established by kfitzes? Is that something possible? And that there is a machlokes rishonim. If she jumped 3 times and she saw, is she kovea veset or not? So Rashi, the Razah, the Ramban, the Tur say yes, she can be kovea veset in such a manner. The Rambam, the Rashba, the Raivad say that kfitza is not a method or is not a cause in itself that can also be used to establish a veset. La halacha, we saw the mechaber that he paskins that she's not kovea, not kovaat veset, and from the mechaber it's mashma that she's not chosheshes even to a veset she'ena kavua. As you recall, veset she'ena kavua, which means a woman does not have a regular period, nonetheless she has to be choshesh for certain days, at the very least, like a veset she'ena kavua, which means that she waits one time. If nothing happens, she no longer has to worry about it the next time out. The first time around, she may have to worry about it. So from the mechaber, it's not mashma like that she even has to be choshesh for veset she'ena kavua. However, the Ramah does say that she may not establish a veset out of kfitzas, but at the very least, if this happens, then she has to be choshesh that next time she jumps, at least like a veset she'ena kavua, that this may be a problem. What's the svara here that there's no kvias veset in kfitza? Because we say the svara is that the nature of a woman is to have a veset at certain times or in certain ways of how she feels, as we will soon see her body, not by a factor, an external factor that brings it about, like jumping, because that's completely external. That's not natural for the woman. If anything, it could be a disease. It could be she has a choli of some sort, or it's just incidental. It happened by chance. It's not necessarily indicative of a veset that can recur and that can be used as a precedent for the future. And we saw that the Tosefta mentions that there are various other kinds of machmas oines. Kfitza is not the only one. But kfitza is the one that's mentioned here, jumping, that there are other kinds of onasim, all kinds of things that can bring about unusual types of periods, but not that it should be a precedent for future veset. Real quickly, the Shach on this mentions 3 halachas. One is that if it happened once for a woman that she saw through jumping, it doesn't have to be choishesh the next time around when she jumps. From one time, she doesn't. When do you begin to be choishesh? If she actually saw it 3 times. So the Shach says from one time it's not a problem. It could be, it just happened. 3 times, yes. Also he says we need to concern ourselves here for the Yom, Greda, or Lechot, in other words the day of the month, or the Haflaga that this occurred. Because since the timing of her seeing the blood happened right after the kfitza, we assume that it happened because of the kfitza. So therefore, there's no reason to also consider the yom, was it the chodesh or the haflaga in between. But there only is one possible concern, and that he grants, that there could be a veset hamurkav. There is such a thing as a veset hamurkav, murkav meaning compounded. In other words, it consists of two things. It consists of a day and of kfitza. So in other words, if she jumped on the 15th of the month and she saw, then that she has to be choshesh on the 15th of the month if she jumps. In other words, the combination of the two, that's a possibility. That if she jumps on a particular day, that may happen as a result of the jump on a particular day. So the two of them together, that can recur. That can happen. But only if she were to jump on that day. Just with the day itself, no. Because so what if this day came? That time it came out on that day because she jumped. So in other words, we don't here concern ourselves for the haflaga in between. It just happened to be 20 days from the last time she saw. Now she saw because she jumped. In other words, haflaga, the day of the month, is not a concern. What can be concerned is murkav. If you have the two, she jumped on a particular day. Well, if she jumps again on that particular day, maybe it could be she's developing a veset of sorts that consists of these two items, jump and day of the month. All right. I'm not going to go through all the examples that we gave, and that was all mentioned in the Mechaber. But in Sif Yud Ches, we do find a situation that the Mechaber brings down that particular example, that a woman can be kovat a veset murkav that consists of a particular day. Now, when she does, the first time around she gets it, she's not choshesh for a haflaga. Because a haflaga you have to have two times. She jumped, 20 days later, she jumped again, and she saw. So then you can establish that there was a haflaga and the jump. But if she saw blood, and then she jumped later on, 20 days later, you cannot establish haflaga yet. Because, the first time there was no jumping. That's how the Shach also explains it. And now, on that day that she jumps, that she's muchzekes to see, we also said that she's asura from the time she jumps until the end of the oina. That's also important to keep in mind, is just because she jumped now doesn't mean she's going to see right away. We consider the entire oina, the entire day or night, whichever it is, that she may have seen and she may see now. Mechaber later on adds that if that day came about, that she usually sees when she jumps, and she did not jump, or she jumped on another day, then she doesn't have to be concerned. Right? Because her entire Kviyas Vesed was established based on the two being there in sync, being together. So if she were to do one without the other, like the Kvitza on another day, or the day in itself without Kvitza, then she doesn't have to be choshesh, because as we said, at the most, the Mechaber goes along with that opinion that she would need the two of them, if we're dealing with Kvitzas. Okay, that was all about the jumping. That was about Mikrim of Ones. And it appears to be that, as we will soon see, that is not as strong of a veset as the following. In Sif Yutes, Chav, 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 when we're dealing more with vesatot of the goof, of the physical body. And what's interesting is we will see today also, B'ezrat Hashem, that a veset can be brought about even by eating garlic and onion, which is it's a small detail that's added later on. Nonetheless, it's apparently there is some chance to believe that certain things are more likely than others. So even though kfitza, we said, according to at least some Rishonim, is so unlikely for it to recur as a veset, we did say that if it occurs at a certain day, as a veset and murkav, it's possible. And for that, of course, you would have to watch out for. But in Yutes, we went on to discuss kovat vesed alidei mikrim shir'u begufa. And this could happen. Now, even though here we have an interesting list of yawning, according to those who describe pihuk as yawning, or sneezing, or pain. Remember, we discussed the various types of sensations in the body that a woman can have when she's getting her period. Now, the Rambam seems to be, he's one of the only ones that says that the reason why he doesn't go along with that these are established veset is because this is normal for a woman to have prior to having her veset. It doesn't mean that these things bring the veset, that they cause the veset. These are normal symptoms. lower abdominal pain, cramps, or even headaches. This is something that a lot of women have. So not everybody may agree that this could become a veset, but they could definitely be indicators. So that's what the U-test is all about. The Mechaber, in discussing the veset of the guf, lists all kinds, and he, of course, goes into more detail. And the reason why he considers this as something to look out for is because these are more common. Simple. In other words, because these are more common, it is definitely something that one has to watch out for. And the way it is described, the way they explain it, is that oreach gorem lemikrim alalu. In other words, the guest, the continuous guest that arrives at the same time, causes these things to spring out into action. So you don't need necessarily a day to be added to these sensations for them to be vasatot. In other words, if a woman says, this is what she feels all the time, this is what she gets, and it happens exactly the same thing, this in itself might bring a veset. This in itself could become a veset kavua. Every single time, boom, this is what she feels. This is what happens to her body. So this can repeat itself. This is more possible for it to come back to recur without the need to establish on which day of the month it happened. And a lot of poskim hold like that. It was just a Rambam that says that this mikrim, these incidents that are listed in the Mishnah, is only to let us know that when the veset comes about, it could be accompanied by this simanim. The Rambam doesn't seem to learn that these can be in itself reasons to form a veset. But the Shuchan Aruch passes like the Rashba and others who hold that it's not dependent on the time. It can happen that a woman has certain sensations of body, and those sensations can be relied upon to establish a veset kavua. All right, then we went on to explain the Ramah. If a woman does have a veset murkav, if she happens to have a veset murkav, in other words, a compounded veset that consists of a michush, of a certain sensation, and a day, that could be, a veset murkav is a possibility. It consists of two things. So in this example, if it consists of a sensation plus a day, then she doesn't have to be concerned if only one of them comes. She's sneezing, she has pain, but it's not that day. Well, she doesn't have to worry about it. And when we say a woman does not have to worry about it, what does that mean? It means she doesn't have to check herself before she's intimate. That's what basically it means. She can go on. Once it has been established that it's murkav, that it's dependent or based on two things, then if they're not there together, the Ramah says she doesn't have to choishish for one of them. Whereas the Taz on this does say that she has to be choishish, which is very interesting. At least like a veset she'ena kavua, for one of them, because maybe, how do you know? Maybe that one may eventually become a veset kavua in itself. But no, we don't hold like that. The Shach, for example, holds like the Ramah, that after a woman has already established a compounded veset of two things, then she doesn't have to be choishish of one. She has to. She's already established it. It has already recurred. It happens. So why be concerned that, it could also be that it's one of the other by itself. No, not necessarily. If she wouldn't have a woman that doesn't have a veset kavua, anything is possible. She has to watch out for various days. But here, once it's established, if she only gets a sneeze, no. So the Shach pretty much goes along with what appears to be the other poskim as well, not like the Taz. Even though it is mentioned, I think, in the Beis Yosef, that it could be that you may have to be choshesh for one. What was interesting is that I found in the Sefer Shevet HaLevi, in Shiurei Shevet HaLevi, that he writes that usually we want and we demand that a veset kavua be at the same exact time frame, meaning the same even oina, day or night. You can't just switch around. In order for it to be fixed, it always has to be the same oina. Remember that? If it's day, it's day. It can't be golesh. How do you say in English the word golesh? It can't just flow. So, sometimes day, sometimes night. No. For it to be regular, it has to be either the day or the same oina. But in the Sefer Shur Lev, it says when you're dealing with a veset that is a veset of the guf, feelings of the body, we're not so strict and demanding that it should be in the same oina. Even if the feeling is day last time and now it's at night, we're concerned that this is it. We don't demand that it should be exactly the same thing because it's close enough.
Well, the reason why it is logical. In the other case, it's
right.
after the time determines Whereas
Right.
the addition
Very good.
outside of the
Very
time.
good. It's
And
something,
then-
yeah. So
and then
therefore the
you-
time is less of a factor.
Right.
Yeah, could be. Yeah, that's the reason. That makes sense. All right. And then we went on to Sif Chof. Mechaber brings two dinim. This is all a continuation of this types of vesatot of the goof. The Mechaber mentions two dinim. Okay, let's assume a woman is watching herself and she sees once, twice, it happens. Now on the third time, instead of having the pihuk, the yawn, the sneeze, on the same day, she has the sneeze or the yawn, whatever, on a different day. So then what do we say? We say Igla Milsa, that the Iker here was the pihuk and not the day. Since the third time that we're expecting the third time to be, a veset that has repeated itself 3 times. But since on the third time we noticed that she sneezed and she didn't see it on that day, she saw it on the following day. So what's more significant here? That the piyuk is the ikar and not the day, because she sneezed again, right? And she didn't see it on that day that she sneezed. So it was not the same day as the first time or second time. It was a different day. So the day here didn't really matter. We were trying to say is that perhaps if the two are together, yes, and they can be together, then the isha has a vesekul. But it just happens to be in this particular example, in this halacha, that the third time she had the pihuk, but she saw on another day. So we say that Iglo Emil said that the pig is the ikar, the veset, which we have to be concerned about, and not the yom. In other words, she doesn't really have now a day that she has to watch for. It's just more the pihuk. In other words, she could have it the other way around. She saw it the same day she always sees, but without pihuk. What does that tell you? Iglo Emil said, and we see from that it's the day that it's really causing this to come about, and it's not the pig. In other words, you can have a situation where you can eventually figure out what's behind this. Is it really the piyuk? Is it both? Is it one or the other? So if the third time around it's one and not the other, then that's all it is. In other words, it's the piyuk or it's the yom, and it's not the two of them. Which helps, of course. If it's not the two of them, it means you don't have to watch out for whichever it is not. So in the second din, if the third time around she had the pihuk, she had the sneeze or the yawn a day before, and she saw the following day, we say that it's due to the pihuk of yesterday. That's another important point that we'll get back to a little bit later. That's the second day. If on the third time she had the pihuk the day before and she saw blood the next day, we say that what brought about that blood is the pihuk of the day before. So even though they're separate, in other words, they're apart, one day apart, we can attribute it to the piyuk. We can still attribute it, even though it's a day before. That it's the piyuk that brought about the blood. All right. The Shach later on adds the following comment. He makes a distinction between piyuk and kfitza, because apparently there is a difference between the two. Kfitza, as we said, comes about through oinus. Some force was applied, and somehow that brought about the seeing of blood. Whereas piyuk is, from what we've seen so far, is a lot more natural. So therefore, the Shach makes the following distinction, that if these two happen a day before, the halacha is different by piyuk than it is by kfitza. He wants to say that when you have, in Sif Yud Zayin, you have a situation where you had the kfitza one day before, and since the kfitza happens because of oinus, therefore you don't say that the kfitza of yesterday caused the re'iyah of the following day. It could be that the day caused it and not the kfitza. And that's the example, but that was the example. We have to be careful not to compare the two examples with the one we just said and the one we said in Sif Yud Zayin, because in Sif Yud Zayin, she's been seeing in the same day. So that's significant, is because there we're establishing that the day is the factor. So in that case, we don't say, you know what? No. She had a kfitza yesterday, so let's say it's the kfitza. No. That kfitza is not necessarily the cause of her riyah, since she's seeing on the exact same day she always sees. She did not see it on the day of the kfitza. It's most likely due to, because that's the day that's determining the riyah. Okay, so kfitza is not to be blamed in Sif Yud Zayin, especially when the day is the same day that recurs and repeats itself. However, by pihuk, it could be a situation that one of the times she did have pihuk yesterday, in other words, the day before, and then she saw blood the following day. Why? Because pihuk is more likely to bring about a veset than a kfitza. Since, as we explained, pihuk is more natural to the body, even though we said, you see, the kfitza did not happen on the same time as the day she saw. She saw it on Sunday all the time. On this third day and the third time she had kfitza on Shabbos. And she only saw on Sunday. So what do we say? You see, it's the day. It's not the kfitza. She jumped yesterday. So what did the Shach say there? By kfitza, we don't blame the kfitza of the day, was that happened the day before. We can easily assume it's the day. Why then by piyuk, even though she had it a day early, it only came about later, do we say, you know what, it's due to the piyuk? Why not just say, you know what, it could be just the day? Because piyuk is more natural, that's all. Piyuk makes more sense, that it's more of an indicator that this is the cause, and not necessarily kfitza, which is not the norm. So we would think the halacha should be the same. Once it's a day before, that's it. You don't attribute it to that necessarily. Comes along the Shach and says, no, by piyuk you can attribute it.
Looking at it as yawn is for the blood, or that the yawn blood emission?
We'll talk about that soon.
A symptom.
Right.
It would be easier to understand why
exactly. It's more like a symptom. Yes, that's correct. Right. Exactly. Very good point. Yeah. Yeah. We'll talk about that soon. That's something that the Rav points out later. But that's how the Shach explains that the halacha, the difference in the halacha between kfitza and piyuk. Piyuk is more natural, and it can happen a day before, and we can therefore attribute it to that. Some, of course, disagree with that. I saw in the Aruch HaShulchan, the Ramban, the Rashba, and the Tur, they actually say kfitza is the same as piyuk, and by kfitza they say that kfitza the day before can be a cause for her seeing the following day. All right, so it could be a machlokes if we attribute the following day or not. Not everybody holds like that, but there are some who do say that you can connect the seeing of the blood to the kfitza even though it happened the day before. Yeah. Okay, so that's where we left off, the various examples of establishing a veset through pihuk or through other kinds of sensations in the body, versus oines, or external factors that are apparently from what we saw in the Meforshim are not so common, are not so natural. Nonetheless, there are times we look out for them too, especially if they repeat itself 3 times. At the very least, like a veset she'eino kavua. And as the Mechaber brings down, the veset amurkav, if it happened that she jumped on the exact same day that it recurred. So if you have the 2, always, you obviously need to worry about it. If you don't have the 2, you just have one and not the other, or the other, then it may not be that significant. All right, Sif Kof Aleph, Kof Beis, and Kof Gimel are pretty much all the same idea, so I'm going to go quickly through it. Mechaber says as follows: Pihako berosh chodesh. Okay, so she had her first yawn. He's on Rosh Chodesh. V'rosa v'chozro, and she saw v'chozro ufihako betoch yemei chodesh. And then she had a repetition of this symptom in the middle of the month, not on Rosh Chodesh. Chosheshes leoiso piyuk. She has to be concerned about the piyuk. Look what the piyuk is doing. Every time she has a piyuk, she sees. Ve'asura l'shamesh, and she cannot be intimate ad shetivdok, until she checks herself. Shekol veset, any veset, ben shel yamim, ben shel aguf, whether it's for days or symptoms in the body. Chosheshes lo bepam achos. Here you do have to be choshesh for even one time, because there's even a chashash. Yesh lochu shema tikva veset lepiyuk below zman yodua. It could even be that she will develop a veset of piyuk without a particular time. Therefore, we'll choshesh for the piyuk alone. V'im botka v'nimtzas shelo rasa. So after she checked herself, she doesn't see after the sneeze or after the yawn. Eino chosheshes od lepiyuk greda. So for the piyuk by itself, she no longer has to be choshesh. But chosheshes lerosh chodesh. It could be that it could be that it was the Rosh Chodesh, or Shema Tikva leRosh Chodesh, because that's when she saw it. That could still be a possibility. So at the very least, one time she has to be choshesh. Now,
but without the combination.
Right.
So the fact I haven't done some Rosh Chodesh.
Right.
I didn't see blood.
She checks herself.
Yeah.
Right. She
the
needs
second time.
Yeah, which we need to discuss right now. What does it mean to check herself? We'll get to that. But apparently something is happening to her.
So this happened already Chodesh, or it just happened once?
Once so far.
One time. Now.
Now she went and saw Betoch Yemei HaChodesh.
So a week later, let's say, for example. Now she went and saw Betoch Yemei HaChodesh. So a week later, let's say, for example. Now she went and saw Betoch Yemei HaChodesh. So a week later, let's say, for example. and she tests and checks herself, and she has to check herself because now she has to check herself. Said right. If she
Right.
sees it, now she didn't find anything. She yawns again a week later. She has to check herself again.
If she checked herself and she didn't see anything, no.
So a week later she doesn't have to check her.
Yeah.
Now if then
Right,
on
it
the
was
next
only
Rosh
once.
Chodesh, she yawns again on the next
She has to watch out
because of the yawn or because of Chodesh?
because of the combination of the.
So if on that Rosh Chodesh she did, she still would have to check out.
No, it's only because it's Rosh Chodesh and the Yom together.
So the fact that the second time around she yawned without seeing it.
I'm sorry. Did I say? No. I'm sorry. The second example that you said, just Rosh Chodesh by itself, she would still have to be Chodesh. Yes.
So it's now it has become the Rosh Chodesh now has
Right.
become independent of the yawning
That's
because
correct.
there was a yawn without blood in
Right.
between.
Yes.
The yawn without blood in between took away the idea that the yawn has.
Well, I don't know if it's not because of the Yom in between. Right now, we're saying that the first time around it was Piyakov Rosh Chodesh, so that means it's a possibility that it could be Rosh
Either
Chodesh.
way.
It's not Piyuk.
So if she has
Right.
a piyuk or it's a Rosh Chodesh in either check.
Yes, right. That's what the Mechaber is saying. So in reviewing the Halacha in Kaf Aleph, basically the Mechaber says the following points. We're concerned that she may be establishing a vesed by Pihuk, by itself. In other words, even though it's a different time of the month, so therefore she's concerned when she has Pihuk, until that concern goes away. That's Halacha number one, or point number one. Or we do have the concern that she could be developing a vesed that is dependent on a day of the month by itself without pihuk. So therefore, if she did have a pihuk one time, not on Rosh Chodesh, and she checked and she didn't find anything, so the pihuk greda, the pihuk shash for pihuk by itself went away. Or if the day of Rosh Chodesh came by and she did not, and she lo piyaka, and she checked and she didn't find anything, the chash of Rosh Chodesh also went away by itself. However, there's always the chash that there may be a combination of the day of the month or haflaga together with pihuk. For that to happen, it has to recur at the same time. In other words, that she sees, in other words, on the day of Rosh Chodesh with pihuk, there could be obviously a concern. That it could still happen until that goes away, until that chashash is removed. So you can have pihuk by itself, the day of the month by itself, or there may be a possibility of the two of them together. And if the two of them come together, then, and she doesn't have it, even though once upon a time she had it, then she's uprooted it. Because whatever she made a chash has to be uprooted to give her peace of mind that she's not creating a precedent for the future.
So that's not necessarily Rosh Chodesh.
Any day, that's correct.
So if
the example here was
she
Rosh
yawns
Chodesh.
and she sees blood,
Right.
then you don't know she sees blood because of the date or because. So when the date repeats itself, regardless of yawning, or
Right.
the yawn repeats itself, regardless of the date, she has to check. If she didn't find anything after yawn, and she didn't find anything in addition of the date, if the yawn and the date come together again, then she has to check again anyway, because that the both are conditions.
Because, that's a possibility that the two are coming together. Now here what's interesting is that the Mechaber tells us about the Pihaka. There's no Veset yet, right? So it's, if anything, it's a Veset Sheina Kavua. And the Mechaber says that Chosheshes, Lo Iso Piyug, and therefore what? Asura L'Shamesh. He says the words Asura L'Shamesh, you cannot be with your husband, Ad Shetivdok. Because whether it's a Veset of Yomim, Veset of Guf, Chosheshes Betam Achas. Because Yesh Lochush, he says, maybe this will happen, maybe there will be a trend here. In other words, it could be that the Piyug itself will become a Veset without a time. And only if she checked and she didn't see anything, then she's okay. In other words, it's very clear that Mechaber says she must check. And that's a little bit difficult to understand. There's a machlokes here. Machlokes a poiskim as to why the Mechaber says here Asura L'Shamesh. This doesn't appear to be this is not the halacha in Veset She'eno Kavua. There's something called a lechatchila, and there's something called b'di'evet. Here he says a lashon of asura, which appears to be that he's more machmir here than before in situations of Veset She'eno Kavua. But here there's a machlokes aposkim as to what the Mechaber meant. The Bach, the Prisha, and the Shach, and the Nekudas and Kesef wrote that the main kavana over here of the Mechaber to say that she must check herself is lechatchila. In other words, b'shas pihuk, she has to check herself. But b'di'evet, if the time went by after the piyuk, and she didn't feel anything of dam, she's clean. Just like any other Vesa She'ena Kavua, that at the time went by and she didn't check. Okay, she should have checked, but she didn't check. Time went by, then she's okay, even though she didn't check. So they're saying, they're learning Pshat in the Mechaber, that this is all a lichatchila did. Just like by the regular Vesa She'ena Kavua. She should check herself. She has to be choishes. She didn't see anything. The day went by, she's clean. Good. You're okay, fine, you should. Next time check.
Understand?
Yeah.
What is this? She didn't check. The time went by. So the time went by and she didn't. What's the difference between the time went by and she didn't see anything yet?
Here the halacha seems to be saying that she has to check. She doesn't check, she can't be with her husband. Until she checks. Yeah. Until she checks, she has to. Yeah.
Is it machlokas as to whether or not this...
No, it appears to be the Mechaber, using the language asura, the Shamesh here,
Right.
Implies that she has to. She didn't, she can't be with her husband. Because it could be, she did see it and now and after, if a woman has to check and she didn't check, it could be, but it's too late for her to notice anything. Maybe there's now there isn't anything, and and it could be a problem.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
This is going on. She didn't check.
Right.
Now, if she checked and she saw, she'd be for the days regardless of which she went in her blood or not.
Exactly.
So the question is, during these 7 days when she didn't check, and now what time period went by? All the 7 days, or what time period?
No, remember, a woman can sometimes have a very short period.
No, that's not my question.
Right?
That's not
No,
my
if
question.
the period is a long period, she didn't see today, she might see tomorrow.
No, but that's not my question. My question is,
Yeah.
she didn't check today.
Right.
Now, if she checked and she saw, she'd been for her husband 7 days.
That's correct.
She didn't check.
More than 7 days.
More than 7 days.
Yeah, altogether it's about 11 or 12 days.
Altogether.
Right.
Let's talk about, so let's say 12 days.
Right.
So she didn't check. Now it's tomorrow. And tomorrow, she looks and she doesn't see it. That's not called checking with respect to the on yesterday.
Right.
Because it could be that yesterday there was something.
That's correct.
And
Sure.
and today she doesn't see
And this,
it.
when we talk about stains in a couple more next Siman, we will see that
Right,
this
just
is.
to keep the thread
Yeah.
going.
Yeah.
So now, what is the din? She didn't check yesterday. We don't know if today is one of the 12 days that you said, or 7 days. Because maybe there was blood yesterday, and today she just doesn't see the blood.
She may have to assume that she's unclean.
But according to those that say it's a lahatchila din, and b'di'evet she's allowed to be with the
That's
husband.
correct.
So they would permit on the second
Yes.
day for it to be allowed.
Yes.
So the second day she doesn't see.
That's
so
correct.
maybe that's the difference. Maybe the Mechaber is saying if she didn't check for those 12 days, we treat her as though she had checked and found. And the others say, no, it's a lahatchila didn't mean to say that if she didn't check and now on the second day she doesn't see, treat her on the second day as though there was nothing on the first.
Yeah, well, that's the machlokes of poiskim here as to what the Mechaber meant here. In a Vesa She'ena Kavua, ordinarily, we say, okay, it's not Kavua, so it's not for sure that she saw. We don't have to make that assumption either. She should check because that's one of the days she has to be concerned about. Had she checked and not seen anything, she can have peace of mind. Since she didn't check, it could be that she did have. But it's not a Vesa Kavua, so we're not strict with her there, right?
How can you forbid?
No, so that's the question. What does it mean, Asura, here?
No,
Is this any different than the other halacha, where there's a lechatchila? Check. If you didn't, but you have it, fine. As long as you didn't feel anything, you didn't see anything, it's okay.
So that's my question
Yeah,
to you.
right.
Because I don't understand it.
Go ahead.
How is there lahatchila versus b'di asura?
Right. That's the question here.
How can you say the Mechaber holds that lahatchila she's asura, but b'di she's
Because
permitted?
why is he being more strict here than in the previous day?
That's a different question.
But that's why they want to say that the real kavana here, they're trying to interpret the Mechaber's words to mean he didn't really mean asura altogether. It means that she should check herself. Lechatchila. In other words, if she didn't, fine. The din is like it was before in a Vesa She'ena Kavua.
So their interpretation, when the Mechaber here said asura, what he meant was that he didn't mean that.
Right. Yes, that's correct. Yeah. The Taz writes that the Mechaber is really more machmer here. Veset aguf, sensations and the feelings of the body, is stricter than just a regular day that's not kavua. He holds that apparently the Mechaber says asura for good reason. Yeah, because this is a lot more serious. This is the body feeling something versus a day that yes or no, we're not sure. So it could be it's not that day because nothing has been established. There's not, but the Taz. I don't know why not everybody agrees with the Taz here. To me, the Taz makes sense. That they could be that the Mechaber was more machmir here. That's when I first learned it. I mean, I figured, yeah, it sounds right to me. But we're talking about the Bach, the Prish, and the Shach. They all say that that's not what the Mechaber meant. But the Tas says yes, that this is Chomer Tfei. It's more Chomer than a Veset of days, which is not Kavua. And even if the Piyuk went by, she's still Asur until she checks. So I'm not sure. I haven't really checked out everyone's reasoning here as to why this may not be more Chomer. But I guess Ena Kavua is Ena Kavua. Well, if something is not Kavua, then who's to say that that's what's causing it? All right. Sif Kov Gimel. Anyway, so maybe let's read it inside. That's Kov Beis. If she, as far as days are concerned, if she had a sneeze today and she had a sneeze 30 days later, if she will have a sneeze even if it's not the 30th day, she still has to be concerned initially to that piyuk. Shema tikva lefiyuk greater. Maybe she might establish a vessel for piyuk. Piyako betoich shloishim, but if you had a piyako within the 30 days and she did not see so then eino sicha lochosh or the piyuk greater. She no longer has to be concerned for a piyuk by itself because it happened and nothing happened. The piyuk came by, nothing happened to her. But sicha, she still has to be concerned sicha lochosh lesoif shloishim at the end of 30 because maybe it's a combination. Or maybe it's the 30th day. On the day of the month that she had the piyuk, maybe it's based on a number of days that have gone by. Maybe it's the day of the month that it happens. So these are all still concerns until she eliminates those concerns. So if she's eliminated this concern of piyuk, okay, it could still be that after a certain amount of days have transpired, then she'll see it. Or it could be at a certain day of the month when she has the pihako as well. Maybe it's that day, or in combination of the piyuk. All right, so on to Kaf Gimel. In Kaf Gimel, we have two.
So I didn't quite get how from 21.
No, very similar, right. One was on Rosh Chodesh, really, dealing more with an example of Rosh Chodesh, right? And Chof Beis, no, not necessarily. It could be any day. Chof Beis is more, it introduces Haflaga. That's really the only difference. Haflaga, meaning the time span in the two periods, yeah. But Chof Aleph and Chof Beis really go together. In Chof Gimel, you have two situations. כל אלו הווסתות שנקבעים על ידי מקרה, אין אחד קובע מחברו אלא כל שפייעקו 3 פעמים ולאותו קבע וסת. All the vesatot that we mentioned that come about as a result of a mikre, there was some sort of incident, some sort of symptom, some sort of sensation. One is not kaveh together with another unless they are similar 3 times. Ela kol shepiyako 3 pamim verosa kava veset. She, for example, would have to have yawned 3 times and saw, then she kaveh. But let's say piyako pamachos nit'at shtei piyom. Let's say she yawned once and she sneezed twice. That's not the same. So even though it's another kind of feeling of the body, in order to establish a vesed with sensations or feelings of the body, all 3 need to be the exact same kind of feelings, right? Even though they all can constitute a real feeling of which we can eventually establish a vesed, for them to be a vesed which requires 3 times, they have to be the same. So that's the first halacha in the Mechaber in dealing with sensations. In other words, you cannot include 3 kinds of argashot shonot, or different kinds of feelings. Now comes the Ramah, and here, this is interesting. The Ramah adds the additional din of ochlo shum. All right, she ate garlic. Yeah. Right. If what? Right. Well, in grocery stores, you can get raw garlic, sure. Anyway, let's say she ate garlic. V'rosa, and she saw. Ochlo botzel, or she ate onion. V'rosa, and she saw. Ochlo pilpilin, she ate chile. I'm saying chili, but pilpilin means any peppers. But we're talking about here, the common denominator is she ate hot peppers, hot stuff, spicy food perhaps. These are all just examples. What they have in common is that they were hot, spicy. And either one brought about blood, but also, yesh oimrim, some say, shekavala vesed liros al yidei kol achilas dvorim chamim, that she can establish a vesed by eating certain hot foods. I have to ask the Mexicans this question if they ever know of a case where they're so used to eating hot food, it doesn't bother them. But I guess since they're so used to it, they may not feel it. But for somebody who's not used to it, maybe it could cause something.
Maybe that's why.
Very good point. Ashkenazi food, huh? They're not used to it. That's a good point. So this, he mentions this from the Rosh. Now, it's not so clear that can really be learned, I think, in the Rosh, but that's what he's quoting here, that they, in themselves, hot foods can establish a vesed. V'yesh oimrim, however, he adds that some say shekol zeh shetire al yidei machal dino kemo shetire al yidei kfitza v'shar ma'aseh shi oisa shemikre re'i al yidei oines ve'eno kovas vesed eleim hayomim. Some say that this by itself, hot food by itself is not enough. If anything, it's like kfitza and other things that bring about or can cause re'iyah through oines. That she will not establish a vesed ela im hayomim. It would have to be a combination of that plus days, not that by itself. In the same way that kfitza by itself does not really lead to anything. And some say no. Eating spicy food resembles more a vesed that can be established through sensations of the body that we just learned about, which are more common, more possible than kfitza. And since they are more, and since eating garlic perhaps is more like them, then kovas oiso afilu belo yomim shavim. Then therefore you can establish a vesed through the eating of these hot, spicy food, even without a combination of days. So the question is, to what do you compare it to? So just to review this last point, the Ramah adds that there is a possibility, of course, that hot foods can bring about. That is not a question. Apparently this they all agree on, that it is possible. So the machlokes of Rishonim is whether we can make a vesed of this in the same way as kfitza or as shum. In other words, which one does it resemble more? So Tosfos and the Rosh hold that she is kovat vesed through this, and they say it's not like the kfitzas that she does not. By kfitzas we said that she is not kovat vesed even if she had it 3 times. A vesed cannot happen through kfitzas. So the das of Tosfos and Rosh is that this is kovas vesed, because by kfitzas we said it's not the normal thing for them to recur, and therefore we do not compare this to kfitzas. So Tosfos and Rosh are machmir, right? If it's not like kfitzas, it means that you do have to concern yourself that it could be she will establish a trend. And kfitzas is unusual, but this is not so unusual. The Rashba holds that the din of vesed of...
So you're saying so whenever a woman wants to stay away from her?
No. Most of the time
she has
not.
to check herself.
No, also not. If it ever happened that she yawned,
yeah, I'm saying
it could be an issue.
It happened once.
Right, it could happen.
She only has to check herself once.
Once, exactly. Yeah, it could be just a fluke.
Yeah.
It just happened at the exact same time that she had this feeling. Not necessarily yawn, right? Anything like that. Yeah.
If she saw outside, she doesn't have if she has a reading pattern in time, haflaga or
right,
and on one of those she yawns and she doesn't have to worry about it because it's on one of her repetitive things. She already has a kavesta. Sure. And she has a vestka every little shoulder she's.
Right.
But this little shoulder she yawned and she saw. She doesn't have to worry about the yawn.
But the yawn, no, not yet, because she already has a vesek kavua, right? And we talked about it before. Once she has a vesek kavua, she doesn't have to be chosheshet for this.
For other circumstances.
Other circumstances, very good, yeah. The Rashba holds that the veset of achilas shum is like a veset akfitzas. He says it's not different. Just because she ate garlic, just because she ate hot food, it's possible, but only in conjunction with days. In other words, if it's murkav with days, yes, but by itself, for it to be a veset, in other words, 3 times, no. So what's the reasoning here behind Tosfos being machmir here? Tosfos is the one that says that this is more of a chumrah than kfitzas. Apparently the Meforshim explained that the reason why Tosfos is machmir by eating of garlic more than kfitzas is that kfitzas comes through tremendous effort. Achilas shum is something that goes into her body. And it could be that once the body absorbs this food, it does something to her body. So this one makes more sense than something that's coming from the outside, applying force that's causing the blood. I mean, that's one explanation given as to why would this be more of a chumrah. Because this is part of her body. This does affect a change in her body, much more than the kfitza. The Chavas Das says we should be Machamer like Tosfos. In other words, it could be that a woman could develop such a trend that every time she eats hot food, she sees it and it could become a vessel. All right. Anyway, I don't know if we have to be concerned about this immediately, because I haven't really heard of cases nowadays that this has happened. But that's Torah. We learn, trying to discuss these scenarios, so there is always that possibility.
People know that.
Yeah, the what?
All these little details.
Yeah, there are vestos of goof, definitely. But as we're going to soon see, are those feelings just indicators, or do they cause? And that's what we're getting back to what you were saying. Are these symptoms or something else? Yeah. So anyway, so far what do we have? We have a machlokes rishonim on eating a spicy food. A lot of them in Forshim say that actually, let's see first. We saw the Tosfos, we saw the Rashba, the Chavas Das, who was Machmer. So we saw that. The Ramah added one point here. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, he just adds that it doesn't have to be shum, garlic. It could be any other kind of hot foods. Does it mean that you can combine all these kinds of things, any hot food, or would it have to be the same hot food? The Gra does not agree with this, with the Ramah here. Yeah, he says he's quoting from the Rosh is mashma that they gimel mine achilus kava veset. He says he doesn't see that. The Lashon Rosh kedivra Gemara b'mordechai mashma lehefech. Isha shebesa lesimon machir mefahekes mateshes or be'achilus shum or achlo pilpelun. You can't have it diversified. It has to be all the same. Anyway, but in Rabbi Kiva Eger, he does say like the Ramah. Achlo shum, but also b'pshuto needed the dafka b'chiai gavna. Given the poshup shad, it appears only if she ate garlic. Given that also begimel min charifim. Avalim ochla gimel pamim shum cover rak leshum. But if she ate 3 times shum garlic, it's only for shum. In other words, if he seems to be saying if she saw by eating any of the 3, given that also begimel min charifim, she could establish a veset. So he seems to go along more with the Ramah than the Gra. Okay, I'm going to look into it a little bit more next time if there's anybody else that says anything. Just to finish up the point where we left off that you mentioned earlier, the Ravid is the one that says here that there's an interesting chiluk, or I should say, an interesting similarity between shum and kfitzas in one detail. That if she ate garlic and she saw, she doesn't have to be choishish for the day. In other words, it could be that it's the garlic that brought it about. So she would only have to be choishish if she eats the garlic again. So that's similar to kfitzas.
Before you continue,
yeah.
This is all under the presumption of vesticle.
Right, sure, of course.
So she cannot veset kavua?
Once you have
garlic could not trigger in addition to
if she already has a veset kavua of time, of days, then this is probably not going to establish a new veset. Unless, of course, she sees that it recurs, it could be a veset within a veset. Yeah, there is a potential for that. But it would have to recur itself several times. Yeah. Usually that's not a concern. So anyway, so getting back to the Ravid, we have here like this. The shum is similar to kfitzas in this one detail, that if she ate shum and she saw, she doesn't have to be choishish for the day. Because what does that mean? It means that it could be that in the same way that the kfitza caused it, it's not necessarily the day. It's the shum that caused it and not necessarily the day.
Well, that's a hypothetical, not necessarily. But she saw it on a particular day. You know what? If she eats shum, she has to be choishish for the day next day. She doesn't have a best one.
If she ate shum and she saw it, it could be.
Put aside the shum for a second.
Right.
She didn't eat shum, she didn't jump, nothing. She didn't even yell that day.
Right.
But what? She saw blood and she doesn't have a best kavua. Doesn't she have to now be worried about the next month on the same day? No.
If what caused it?
No, she saw on a day.
On a day, of course she does.
She has to be
sure.
Because it's the day now. A month later.
Right. She has oina benanis. She has the day. Sure.
Okay. So now on the day she saw it, but she also had garlic. So all of a sudden the day doesn't count for anything anymore.
No. We're not saying that. If she has it on certain days, then those are the ones that matter.
She doesn't have it on certain days. Right. She has no best kavua.
All of a sudden she's discovering that every time she eats garlic.
No, not every time.
Okay.
Let's go
step by step. She noticed it once.
No best kavua is the first.
Right.
The second step is she didn't eat garlic, she didn't yawn,
Right.
she didn't jump, she
So
didn't do anything unusual.
right. So she
had
only has the
tails
day.
alone.
Right.
And she saw blood on this day.
Right.
So a month later, on that day, she has to...
She has to be choshesh for that day. Right.
Now, she did have garlic on that same... all
On
of
the
a sudden-
same day.
On the day that she saw blood.
Right.
She had garlic, she had garlic and she saw.
No.
So now she doesn't have to worry about the date.
She was expecting it on
No,
this
no,
day.
she wasn't. I stepped back in time. I changed the case.
Right.
The original case was she didn't eat garlic, she didn't have anything,
Right.
it's fine, nothing.
Right.
Just she saw
So
on a
she
certain
saw on a
day.
certain day. So she's
Then a month later she has to check it. Same
Yes,
day.
that's correct. Yeah.
Going back in time, trying to travel backwards, we're back in the past.
Right.
On that day where she saw she did have garlic. So now a month later on that day she doesn't have.
Only if she has the garlic. She doesn't have
So
to check
the
on that
moment she
day.
happens to have garlic on the day when she sees.
Yeah.
she
If she,
doesn't have
that day, that's what we just said.
that garlic takes
That
over-
day is not necessarily a chashash.
Not necessarily,
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
Not necessarily.
Right.
But you're telling me it's not at all. Not
Yeah.
only not necessarily. Not necessarily means it's inconclusive. Could be yes, could be no. So then I would think she has to check. If it could be, it could be. If it could be, she has to check. But if you're telling me that she doesn't have to check, that it's more than just inconclusive,
Yeah.
then you have taken
She
away.
would only. That's
all-
the. Yeah. She would only have to be choshesh if she ate garlic.
So it's interesting because
Right.
if she didn't eat garlic, the day would be sufficient. She would have to check on that day. She didn't eat garlic.
Yeah.
She happens to have eaten garlic. All of a sudden, the day no longer means anything.
No. Why? It would mean ordinarily, but here she happened to have seen because she ate the garlic.
Oh, how do you know it's because she ate garlic?
We don't know. We have to be
Ah.
choshesh. Right?
So but the fact
Yeah.
that it might be because of the garlic, all of a sudden I don't have to worry about the day anymore. That sounds to me very strange. That the garlic should have such a power to take away any
I don't-
concern about the day.
I
Yeah.
didn't hear him say that.
Yeah.
Or the haflug. This is in addition to.
No, that was
not as a
recurring.
separate from.
Yeah.
The question
Right.
wasn't recurring. The question wasn't recurring.
Right.
She has no kabul, that's kabul was my case.
Right.
Right,
You get
no
all that?
kabul, but she has.
Yeah.
No, that's kabul.
We went through that there were the day she had every 30 days. This is in addition to 4.
If she has to
Anything
worry
do
about
with
every 30 days after what? Well, but she just saw today. She just saw today. So she would have to normally worry 30 days after this one because it's the last one.
She were to eat garlic on another day, she would have to be concerned about that day she eats garlic.
Because of the garlic.
Right.
30 days after this day, she has to be concerned
Right.
about the day.
Right.
Now, if 30 days later she doesn't see,
Right.
then if she has garlic again on the same day, she has to be concerned. 30
Only about the
days-
garlic.
30 days later?
Only about the garlic.
Only
That's
about
the
the
point.
garlic.
You see?
Okay.
See, if it's the first time around, then she always has to be. The question is, does the day become an
If
issue
now
too in the
30
future?
days later she didn't see,
Right. Does the day become an issue? In other words, do I still carry over that day?
She did
But
before.
I'm going to review this again next time
Okay.
because I do want to look into this a little bit more. But this was I just wanted to bring out the Ravid's point is that the shum would be similar to kfitzas in that if she ate the shum, she wouldn't have to be choishes later on for that day. Only if she in other words, if she ate the shum. Whereas in the Veset HaGuf, you do have to be choishes to the yoim and to the piyuk by themselves, each one separately. Why? Because the piyuk, this is what you were saying, the piyuk is more of a siman, is more of a symptom that she's about to see, whereas kfitza and shum are causes of the re'iyah. They're not necessarily the symptoms. So piyuk will always be more chomer than kfitza and shum, which may actually be a cause versus a symptom. So when something is a symptom, it's much more serious. In other words, I'm expecting it. And since I'm expecting it, I have to be concerned about that day. And in other words, the yom grader and the piyuk grader. In other words, could be that it's caused about as a combination of the two. But anyway, I think we can leave this for next time, review this point. This one is not so common anyway, but it could happen, through hot foods that a woman can definitely, just like there are many other causes and factors that can bring power. So it's something to watch out for. Okay, we'll continue next time.